أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, we seek His aid, we ask His forgiveness. We repent to Him and we rely on Him. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil of our souls and our deeds. Whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided, no one can misguide. And whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not guided, no one can guide. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his final messenger. يقول الله تعالى في كتاب العزيز أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم واعبدوا الله ولا تشركوا به شيئا وبالوالدين إحسانا وبذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين والجار ذي القربى والجار الجنب والصاحب بالجنب وابن السبيل وما ملكت أيمانكم إن الله لا يحب من كان مختالا فخورا. As always, brothers and sisters, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to be here on this blessed day of Jum'ah. Alhamdulillah. We thank Him subhanahu wa ta'ala for granting us the opportunity to turn to Him in sincere repentance on this blessed day. And I pray to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala that we do that. We thank Him subhanahu wa ta'ala for all that He has blessed us with all that He has given us. Even though most often we are not deserving of it. We thank Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Brothers and sisters in faith, today I wanted to have a conversation with you with regards to our responsibility with regards to community. And I chose a verse from Surah An-Nisa, which is Surah 4. And the verse is verse 36, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, join nothing with Him. Be good to your parents, to your relatives, to the orphans, to the needy, to your neighbors, near and far, to travelers in need, and those in your care. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like arrogant, boastful people. This verse, brothers and sisters, is a call to service. It's a call to service. And we talk about service pretty much every Friday. We talk about service, and we talk about the importance of the believer engaging in something that is outside of him or herself. That you have to be of service to other people. And that is foundational in your faith. And inshallah, we're going to establish that today. In this verse in Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins by saying that we must worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. You're worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, and then you're engaging in service. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Some may translate وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا meaning to be kind to your parents, but it goes well beyond that. Be at the service of your parents. Being kind to your parents is one thing, but being at the service of your parents is something totally different. See, because the Quran is deep. The Quran is not shallow. The Quran is deep. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to you about being in the service of others. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Then he goes down the list. And this list is not restrictive. Where he says, وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى. Be at the service of your relatives, near and far, siblings, uncles, aunts, cousins. Be of help to people. وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى. The orphans. وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. To the needy. Those who are in need, and we talk about this all the time. Not passing up opportunities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly placed in your path. For you to walk away from that's on you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you opportunities. For you to walk away from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. What he has given you. That's on you. That's one of the tests, that's one of the ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests you. I had a brother, maybe about a month ago. He came up and asked me, man, he asked me a question about, the saying that I'm blessed. Saying that I'm blessed. Or considering that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, it's a ni'mah. There's no question about that. But there's a difference between it being ni'mah and it being a blessing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives ni'mah to everybody. The believer, the non-believer, the compliant, the non-compliant, the worst people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives too. But is there barakah there in that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them? Is there barakah? If you're not doing what Allah said, if you're not doing those things that will get you closer to Allah, that will draw you nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no barakah. There's no barakah. There's no blessing. You just have stuff. You just have stuff. I'm going to touch a little bit today on a prevalent culture that is affecting young and old, unfortunately. And I'm going to make some comments today about our young men. These are comments that need to be made. This is an observation that I've made, and our older brothers are not getting any younger. And our younger brothers are absent. Our older brothers are looking behind, and there's nobody there. There's nobody there. And of course, we come up with all of these reasons why I'm not engaged, I'm not involved in the masjid, and they're all excuses. They're all excuses. They're excuses that shaitan provides you with, and you happily embrace, and you hold on to them. You know, some of us were born Muslim, grew up in Muslim homes, yet you couldn't be further from the masjid. Why is that? You have to ask yourself that question. That's not a question that somebody else should answer for you. So if you had a bad experience in a masjid or a particular masjid, Abdullahi wasi'a, Allah's land is spacious, the masajid all over the place. And if your issue is with your iman, then that's something that you have to handle. That's your issue. That's not somebody else's issue. It's not for somebody else to figure out why you're not engaged and why you're not involved. That's your responsibility. We all have that individual responsibility. My path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala depends on Him subhanahu wa ta'ala guiding me in the work that I put in. And if I'm not putting in any work, meaning working on me and whatever issues that I have with regards to why I'm not coming to a space that I need to come to, because I need it. We all need it. And I have to ask myself some hard questions. Why am I not doing that? This is for my sisters as well. But as we know, usually our sisters are usually more engaged than our brothers. The further away you are from the masjid, the more likely you are to embrace this culture of wretchedness that's become prevalent in our communities. We celebrate ignorance. We celebrate ignorance. And it's become the culture. It's become the culture. The culture of Cardi B. Now, this is real. Now, you may be looking at me when you, man, what you know about Cardi B? I got kids. Okay? So the culture of, I'm going to keep it real, the culture of Cardi B. Where your claim to fame is ignorance. This is the member, so I have to respect the member. But any thinking person knows what that represents, but unfortunately, that's what a lot of us aspire to. Somehow, this person is placed on a pedestal. When you're not engaged in the masjid is more than just you coming to pray Jummah. Occasionally, when you get around to it. These relationships that you have, this what we call the brotherhood, you need it. Because you're in an environment that does not support your ideals. The environment does not support your ideals. The environment that you're in calls you to everything that goes against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling you to. So if you're not around people that are calling you to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling you to and reminding you of your duties to yourself and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then of course you'll be another statistic. Another one of our young people that has fallen by the wayside. But that's on you. These are the choices that you're making to be disengaged. Yes, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I'm going to give you an example. And I think I shared this example with you a couple of weeks ago, where a man came into the masjid to make salah. He complained that the person that was leading salah was reading too long, etc., etc., etc. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna minkum munaffirun," that some of you are chasing people away from the faith. That's a real statement. But guess what? Each and every individual still has a choice to make. Just because somebody offended you, you've heard me say thousands of times, often in our spaces, we're not welcoming. A person comes in beat up and battered, and we help them continue. We add to their bruises. We add to it. Because the sister ain't dressed right. Her kimar ain't right. She doesn't have an overgarment on. All we go down a list. The brother has a reputation. The brother's in the masjid. Alhamdulillah. That ought to be celebrated that the brother showed up. The brother showed up. My young brothers, we need you. You are needed. Now, as usual, every Friday, and alhamdulillah, walk in today, and Uncle Ali is here. And we have some of our elders here. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how much longer they will be with us. But I'm going to tell you, Sheikh Abdul Salam, who's sitting back there in the corner, when he came to the masjid, he was 20 years old. And he's been here ever since. Every Friday, he's here. Every time there's a call out, he shows up now. Now. He came to this community in 1960. This is 2018. If there's a call out, trust that he will be there. My young brothers, where y'all at? When there's a call out, I see Sheikh Abdul Salam. If Uncle Ali could make it, he would be here. I'm going to tell you how deep this is. Every time there's an announcement for classes, Uncle Ali is about 80, 85, 86 years old right now. May Allah preserve him. Every time there's an announcement for classes, and he's present and he hears about it, do you know what he says? I'm coming to class. I'm coming to class. And he's serious. And he will show up to class. Where y'all at? Or is it that you need somebody to hold your hand? I know I'm gonna ruffle some feathers today, but I mean, listen, the truth has to be told. Where y'all at? Somebody got to hold your hand, massage you, make you feel good. Things got to be right. Or is it that you're not trying to do anything? You got to ask yourself some hard questions. What are you about? See, because in the Quran that you claim that you ascribe to, that you follow the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm going to tell you. Surah Al-Baqarah. Alright? The verse is verse 25. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وبشر الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات أن لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار كلما رزقوا منها من ثمرة رزقا قالوا هذا الذي رزقنا من قبل, to the end of the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give those who believe and do good the news that they have gardens graced with flowing streams. Now you may be asking yourself, well, Imam, where are you going with this? Where I'm going, in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has paired iman, faith, and service. You know how many times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala paired iman and service in the Quran? Some 51 times. 51 times where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. Those who believe and do some work. Those who believe and do some work. Most scholars say that you cannot separate the two. You can't separate iman from service. So if you say you believe, you have to be about the work. And the work that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to here, when he says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, he's not talking about وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, give that good news to those who believe and do what? Pray. That's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about your salah. He ain't talking about that. He's talking about you doing some work. He's talking about you doing some work, engaging in some service. Wherever that may be, as you always hear me say. But I am going to encourage you, because you need the masjid. You need the masjid, whatever masjid that is, and you've always heard me, this is our position here, that we have to belong somewhere. You have to belong somewhere. Can't be a nomad. You have to belong somewhere. Wherever that somewhere is, you need to go somewhere and commit to an establishment. You have to do that. That's for your benefit. See, because service without sincerity is useless. We can't get it twisted where, I went to the masjid and, I tried to get involved and all this stuff. Where somebody didn't do something for you. You're the one that's in need. It's not the other way around. Allah don't need you. He don't need you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need you. How more clear can it be made than when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَإِن تَتَوَلَّوْا يَسْتَبْدِلْ قَوْمًا غَيْرَكُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَكُونُوا أَمْثَالَكُمْ. If you turn away from this what we're calling you to, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling you to, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace you. He don't need you. You're His creation. You're in need of Him. يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ أَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاءُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. O mankind, you are in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does not need you. The progress and preservation of faith, you're invited to take part in that. That's Allah's business. You're invited to take part in that. So you can benefit from being engaged. You're not spreading any deen. Allah spreads the deen. He don't need you. He don't need you to do that. He doesn't need you to preserve His deen. He preserves His own deen. It's His deen. We got to act like we know. This is Allah's deen. He preserves it. يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيُضِلُّ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. He guides whom he wills, and he allows to go astray whom he wills. This is Allah's deen. You need the masjid, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, and we need our young men. We need you to show up. I'm going to give you another reason why you should show up to the masjid. Before I do, now I'm not going to put the brother on the spot, but I have one of my former students who's in the building, one of my former Quba students, who I'm happy to see today. Alhamdulillah. When I was his ustadh, I was 21 years old. When Imam Anwar was his ustadh, he was 24 years old. So some of you young brothers that are here, you have a point of reference what engaging in service throughout your life means and looks like. Young brothers, where you at? Where you at? As I was saying, you need the masjid. You need the masjid because the amount of barakah, the amount of reward that you can gain from being in this space and dedicating, when I say this space, I'm not specifically talking about this masjid. I want you to confuse me. You dedicate, when you do some service, some khidmah at a house of worship, there's tremendous reward in that for you. There's tremendous reward in that for you. I'm going to share with you hadith narrated by Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, where he says that, narrated by Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where he says that there was a woman that used to tend to the masjid, the Prophet's masjid. She used to clean the masjid all the time. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called her back. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam shows up one day, comes to the masjid one day. He keeps noticing that something's missing. Where is the sister that was cleaning the masjid? So he asked his companions. Where is Ummu Mihjan? That was her name, or her kunya. Where is she? I haven't seen her. They said, well, she died. And we gave her her rights and we buried her. The Prophet ﷺ got upset. They said, well, she passed and we didn't want to wake you and we didn't want to bother you with that, so we took care of it. Prophet ﷺ got upset. He says, why did you not tell me? Now here's a person, this is a woman that people probably walked by. She was unassuming. This is the colored woman that would clean the masjid. And I use that term for a reason. Because often, when we see commentary on a hadith, the focus, when it has to do with race, often the focus is on, well, this was somebody that, people would ignore, they would look down upon, all that good stuff. That's not what we should get from this hadith. Because Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when she passed away and he became upset that he was not told that she passed away, he said to them, one, why didn't you tell me? And two, show me where y'all buried her. So the Prophet ﷺ went to her grave and he prayed for her. Not every believer got that honor. Not every believer got the honor where they passed away during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and he made it a point to go and pray for them. But this was a woman that was in the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he went and he prayed for her. That's honor. That is honor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored her. And Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam honored her. And you engaging in service at any house, any masjid, is honorable work. If you have a half hour, if you got 15 minutes, give those 15 minutes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like I said earlier about my younger brothers, and you see it every Friday. It shouldn't be that you walk in the masjid and you see Brother Uthman or one of the older brothers sweep with a broom, a vacuum cleaner, or a rag, and you walk by it. See, but it goes back to these opportunities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places in your path. So you had to make a choice when you saw Fulan with a vacuum cleaner and you decided to walk by them, as opposed to offering help. So you blew that opportunity where you could get some hasanat. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. That falls into that. Or when you see Brother Fulan stocking the table outside and you don't even offer some assistance. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Islam is not complicated. And you doing service is not complicated. You just have to get out of your own way. You have to change the way that you're looking at your life. You have to change the way that you're looking at your life. And you have to stop saying to yourself, well, they don't need me. Yes, they do. The Ummah needs every member. Every member has value. Everybody has something to offer. Everybody has a role to play. You can't have a community with no people. And our masajid cannot be empty. Or let me rephrase that. The people that are upholding the masajid are a bunch of old men and women. We can't have that. We won't have any masajid. I didn't say we won't have any Islam. We won't have any masajid. So I'm going to say it again. I'm going to ask the question. My young brothers, where y'all at? أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات من كل ذنب واستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبي الكريم وبعد. Brothers and sisters, before I close today, I want to bring two things to your attention. And this is with regards to etiquette of Jumu'ah. One is with regards to the etiquette of Jum'ah, the other is with regards to our salah in general. So, when you're in Jum'ah, you're in Jum'ah. When the Imam is on the minbar, you're supposed to give the Imam your full attention. So when you come into the masjid, if you're late, you shouldn't be making sunnahs. Giving the Imam your attention is an obligation. Making your sunnahs is a sunnah. So we never place the sunnah before the obligation. We don't do that. So if you come into Jum'ah and the Imam is already on the minbar, you shouldn't have a seat. Because if you do something other than have a seat, you're in violation. That's one. The second is, and I've been meaning to bring this to everyone, to our attention for a while, and that is, that when you're in salah, the Imam's leading you, you're in congregational prayer, you have to follow the Imam's movements. You have to follow the Imam's movements. You can't do your own thing. That's why the Imam is the Imam. So some of us who, in transition, coming from sujood to qiyam, we're in the habit of adding extra movements by sitting or whatever. If you're in Salatul Jama'ah and the Imam didn't do that, you're in violation. You're in violation. That's fiqh. That's not me saying that. That's fiqh. Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu says that one day the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam led them in prayer and he was sitting. So they all sat. And they prayed along with him while the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was seated. Because he couldn't stand. So after prayer, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, he turned around to them and said, إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامُ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ. That the purpose of the Imam is to be followed. Not for you to follow. In your mind, you're following some sunnah. You're supposed to follow the Imam. So there cannot be the Imam transitions from sujood or sujood to qiyam and you decide to make a stop. Because you think you're following a sunnah. If you're praying by yourself, and in your madhab, that's a sunnah, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. The obligation that we're all charged with in congregational prayer is for you to follow the Imam. So there is no adding movements. So he went on to say, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, فَإِذَا كَبَّرَ فَكَبِّرُوا. If he says takbir, then you say takbir. وَإِذَا سَجَدَ فَاسْجُدُوا. He was very specific. He gave a description of salah. He didn't say if the Imam stands, then you do something else. This goes back to something that you hear often. And again, my comments are more for my young brothers. You got to know your deen. You have to know your deen. And I'm going to say it again. You have to know your deen. That's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to know what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. That's not, if you are mukallaf, if you are charged with responsibility, it's your responsibility to learn that. It's your responsibility to learn how to worship. That's your responsibility. And if nobody taught you, well, nobody ever told me that. You can't stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with ignorance. Claiming, well, you know what? You can't punish me because there was stuff all around me. I lived in an age where there was internet, you had ebooks, you had all kinds of classes online, you had live classes, you had... So, what's your excuse again? I've been talking today a lot about showing up. You got to show up. When classes are being offered, you got to show up. Can't be the imam is holding a class, the imam is holding a class, and he got a bunch of old people in his class. Then you come to the masjid and you're doing some convoluted stuff, and you get all in your feelings when somebody says something to you. You got to show up. Your deen is your responsibility. It's your responsibility. What you're supposed to know, you're responsible for. You're responsible for seeking it out. Knowledge isn't supposed to come and knock on your door. Fulan, it's time for you to go to class. That's not how that works. You have to seek it out. The same way you seek out all those opportunities in your life. Because you go after what you want, don't you? You go after what's important to you, don't you? Your deen has to be important to you. Now, what I just shared with you with regards to salah, that's basic. That's not some deep fiqh stuff. That's basic. You can't be in salah, the imam is doing one thing and you're off doing your own thing. You're in violation. Because you read in some book that, the Prophet prayed this way. You have an imam. Your obligation is to follow the imam. When the imam goes into ruku', you go into ruku'. When the imam comes out of ruku', you come out of ruku'. When the imam goes into sujood, you go into sujood. And when the imam comes out of sujood, you come out of sujood. You can't do your own thing when you're in Salatul Jama'ah. You can't do that. You may be sensing that my comments with regards to this is, a bit passionate. That's because it's important and because it is. I'm really trying to communicate, especially to my younger brothers, that you need the masjid. You need this. Spiritually, you need this. Spiritually, you need it. And I'm going to end with this as I end every khutbah that I give. Be good to yourself. What I just talked to you about today, what I shared with you today, the suggestions that I made to you today, it's all about you being good to you. And I'm going to go back to the ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. That's what it's about. It's about you being good to you. It's about you being good to you. It's about you doing those things that you need to get you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Age ain't got nothing to do with it. You may be saying, human nature, when I get older, that's when I'll. No. Mm-mm. Especially you younger brothers. You know plenty of young men that are no longer here, that you buried. There are no guarantees. There's no such thing as when I get older. You may not. You may not. And if you are confused about any of that, Brother Amin Alderman is here. You can go and ask him, Brother Amin, how many young brothers do you guys receive at your funeral home? He can tell you. He can tell you. Nothing is guaranteed. If you're not working on your akhirah, you're doing harm to yourself. You're doing harm to yourself. And your working is more than you just making salah. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran makes a distinction. I told you that He paired Iman and service 51 times in the Quran. Be about the work. Be about the work. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He accepts from us all on this blessed day of Jum'ah, that He increases us all on this blessed day of Jum'ah, that He forgives us all on this blessed day of Jum'ah. ألا وصلوا على سيد المرسلين وإمام المتقين فقد أمركم الله بذلك في كتاب العزيز فقال جل من قائل إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما ويقول عليه أفضل الصلاة والتسليم من صلى علي مرة صلى الله عليه بها 10 اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وأنعم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله العظيم الجليل يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون وأقم الصلاة فإن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر.